Oh, go. Good morning, everyone. I am Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams, and welcome to Waking Up with Wesley. Also, welcome to spring, but is it really though? Because if you've stepped outside, it feels pretty chilly. We've got the first sunrise of spring to bring you this time lapse over Gulfport, so take a look and behold the first sunrise of spring. Here's a look at that view over the Mississippi coast on this March 20th Thursday morning. And yeah, that's the first sunrise of spring. Spring officially began at 4:01 a.m. today. Now, what's that all about? What's so important? What happened at 4:01 that made the difference between winter and spring? Well, in order to know the exact answer to that, we got to take a trip. Let's all fly out to the equator. And if you are standing on the equator today, you're noticing that the Earth's angle with respect to the sun is directly pointed at it. So, say it a different way, the sun's rays are angled directly over the equator on the equinox, because the angle of Earth actually varies over the course of a year, and really that's the reason for the season, if you will, is the Earth's angle with respect to the sun, not even our position to the sun, because in the winter the Earth is actually located closer to the sun than in the summer, but because the northern hemisphere is tilted toward it, it actually makes us warmer in the summer and cooler in the winter when northern hemisphere is tilted away from it. So let's walk you through the seasons. Here's a look at why Earth has seasons. Of course, we know there are 4 seasons. On the right here, we've got the winter solstice. That's the start of winter. And up top, we got the vernal equinox. That's the start of spring. That's where we are right now. You are here. And then you got the summer. That is the summer solstice. That's the start of summer. And then you got the autumnal equinox. That's the start of fall. And again, when you are up here, what's happening is we make our annual trip around the sun, is that the sun's rays are angled directly over the equator. The reason we can tell this is not by just looking at the sun, but instead by seeing how much daylight each part of Earth is receiving. And we got people all over the world that are able to see this, witness it, observe it, and report it. So it's very easy to know how much daylight is over each part of the world. And wouldn't you know it, on the spring equinox, all parts of Earth get an equal amount of daylight, about 12 hours. Maybe in a few spots it's a minute earlier, a minute less, whatever, but in general, it's about exactly 12 hours of daylight everywhere on the whole planet. And that's where the equa comes from in the equinox. I guess it's actually Latin for equal nights. And we can take a little trip in the time machine to summer and see what's the difference between where we are now and where we're going to be in 3 months. First day of summer this year will be on June 20th or thereabouts. And instead of the sun's rays being angled directly over Earth's equator, they're actually angled over Earth's northern hemisphere. That's why it's so hot up here. That's why it's summer, because the sun is literally beaming right down on us. But don't believe me, don't take my word for it. Go to June and take a trip. Take a trip from where we are in the northern hemisphere, the Gulf Coast, and take a trip down to Australia or down to Argentina, the opposite side of the world, the southern hemisphere. In our summer, they get less sun. They actually get their winter. So the seasons are reversed depending on the side of equator you're on. So in our summer, it's their winter, and they get less daylight there. Where we are in the northern hemisphere, the Tropic of Cancer runs through. That's just the line of latitude that is around the northern hemisphere. And we get about 13.5 hours of daylight in summer, but in the Tropic of Capricorn, the line of latitude that rolls across the southern hemisphere, yeah, they don't even get 12 hours. And then we can skip over fall because it's just the same thing as spring. and then go to winter. And this is what I was talking about. So in the winter season, the sun's rays are angled directly over the southern hemisphere, over the Tropic of Capricorn. So they get those longer days. Our winter, but their summer. So we call it winter because we're not getting as much daylight in our winter, even though it is their summer. We're getting less than 12 hours of daylight once it comes to our winter season, but our winter season is their summer, so they're getting more than 12 hours of daylight in the Tropic of Capricorn. So a lot to think about as we mention the reason for the seasons here on this Spring Equinox 2025. Hopefully that helps you to put things into perspective that I know we always like to focus on where we live, but there's a whole planet out there. And yeah, when you zoom out enough, you start to see different types of weather and different types of seasons. But fortunately, in the equinox, in the spring and in the fall, because there's a fall equinox, there's a spring equinox, and fortunately, we all get to share the same season, generally the same type of weather. It is a slight difference since we are exiting winter and going towards summer. For them, they're actually exiting their summer and going toward their winter right now in the southern hemisphere. But at least right now, we're kind of meeting halfway and everyone's, hunky-dory, about the same. So let's talk about the weather that we're experiencing today. You would wish it felt like spring, but if you were out at the beach this morning like me, did you watch my live segments in Good Morning Mississippi? You noticed I had a knit cap on. You noticed I had a jacket on, and underneath that jacket I was actually wearing a sweater on top of my shirt and tie and undershirt. Layers, like an onion. It was cold. It was so cold out there. And yeah, the temperature was only in the 50s, but that breeze, it was incredible by the beach. I mean, I don't want to exaggerate too much, but that wind was kind of almost hard to stand up in. I think it was the gusts that wound up doing that. The gusts were probably topping 30 miles an hour. I'm actually kind of curious now. Let me see if I can look up the wind gust speed history in Biloxi to see what I put myself through and what maybe some of you might have been going through earlier this morning. So let's see. I know we got one in here somewhere. There it is, the wind gust recap, this one. So it's not one to pull up for me. Okay, here we go. This is today's peak wind gust speeds. What's the highest wind gust we've seen? I knew it was 30. Now, it says 29 for Biloxi, but that's pretty close. It did feel like a 30-mile-per-hour wind gust to me. Now, that one was right before 4 in the morning, but I would imagine it wasn't that different a couple of hours later. So, yeah, it's been a pretty breezy day so far today. Over in New Orleans, they almost clocked a 40-mile-per-hour wind gust at some point today. So, a breezy Thursday to go along with the chill. Those two things don't really go together if you're wanting it to be comfortable outside, but that's what we have today. Old Man Winter's just not quite done. He's got one last thing to say for today and tonight and tomorrow, and then we can really get into the spring swing of things by Saturday. But we got to talk about tonight. Where do you live? I'm hoping that you live in the 6 southernmost counties of Mississippi because that's who we forecast for. If you are living in an area that is south of Interstate 10, which is many areas in Bay St. Louis, Waveland, Pasquistan, Long Beach, parts of Gulfport, parts of Biloxi, Ocean Springs, Gulf Park Estates, Gaucher, Pascagoula, well, then you want to focus on this right side, the coast part. You're looking at temperatures tonight in the upper 30s. You might not get much frost, but the areas that are north of Interstate 10, Poplarville, Picayune, Wiggins, Big Level, Perkinston, Lucedale, The Kill, Saussure, Lyman, Orange Grove, Woolmarket, parts of D'Iberville, and Van Cleve, and Big Level, and Wade and Hurley. I think I've named most of them. I know I didn't name all of them. But those are places that you want to watch out for frost tonight because the temperatures are probably going to fall into the lower 30s, mid to lower 30s. There's actually an alert in place for this. There's a frost advisory that goes from Georgia to Alabama, right here to South Mississippi. Officially, it only includes Stone and George counties, but when you look at the model data for tomorrow, It doesn't differentiate between Stone and George or Jackson and Hancock. It has all of us to I-10 underneath the potential for frost conditions. So I'm going to circle here. Basically, anywhere that I've circled, you're going to want to make sure your protections are in place for any of your plants, because otherwise they're probably going to be damaged or killed by the frosty conditions that are going to happen tonight after midnight, especially between midnight tonight and sunrise Friday. That will be the time frame which the area I talked about north of I-10 will see those temperatures drop to the mid to lower 30s. And, you know, if you planted early, now you got to protect those plants. We always say there's always one last freeze before Easter, and while this probably won't be a freeze, it is enough to damage plants. This year, Easter does not happen until April 20th, so we could still have a good little while to go. Maybe there are more cold snaps to come. But in our 7-day forecast, this is kind of it. Once we get past today, tonight, and tomorrow, smooth spring sailing for the weekend and beyond. We're looking at 70s. So we'll be back into the 70s Saturday. The first weekend of spring promises to be a really good one. If you're a fan of spring weather, go out and make plans and spend time outside on Saturday. It's going to be exactly what the doctor ordered for spring lovers. Now, Sunday, it will turn slightly muggier, and that will be ahead of a much higher rain chance. Sunday's daytime rain chance, 20% or less. I think you're going to find many rain-free hours, lots to love during the day on Sunday. But Sunday night's rain chance, 60%, maybe higher. And that continues into Monday with scattered showers and a chance of storms. So don't be caught off guard by the wet weather rolling in for the beginning of next work week. But we got plenty of time to talk more details about that. Well, that'll do it for the update on this Thursday, the first day of spring. I've been Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. Take care and try your best to stay warm as we start off the spring season on the cool side.